Good morning, everyone. So, like Jemis mentioned, right, we are going to be looking at 4 lessons for this oral workshop. And these 4 lessons are extremely important because after these 4 lessons, they go and they take their O-level oral. So there's a lot of pressure on us to actually equip them with the necessary skills, make them aware of what's going on, and ensure that they are up to date on content. So there's a whole lot of content on this particular page, but the first thing I'm going to focus on is the lesson highlight section, which is all the way at the top, this little grey box. Now, there's 3 lesson highlights which would be the same or very similar across the 4 lessons. 3 things that we want to tell them: awareness, content, and skills. So when it comes to awareness, it's more of the understanding or being conscious of all the different aspects of both section A and section B. So I have my blue, red, and green boxes there for awareness. First thing, blue box. Awareness of the different question types. There are 4 questions that they are going to be asked. 1 in planned response for section A and 3 for the spoken interaction for section B. Section A, we need to tell them that it's definitely going to be an argumentative question. So for sure, they have to know how to go about answering an argumentative. For section B, there's a few options actually, because there's a personal reflective, a descriptive, expository, and then argumentative as well. So as I've specified here, right, the only thing that's definite is also argumentative. The third question for spoken interaction, they are going to have to respond to another argumentative question. There's going to be 2 questions before that. It can either be personal reflective, descriptive, or expository. Once they are aware of that, we need to let them know that there are 3 different responses that they need to become very familiar with: the peel format, the piece format, and the scare format. So for the kids that have been with us for quite a long time, or at least for a few lessons, they would know scare for sure. Some of them might still not be entirely familiar with piece or peel, or how to go about using it. For the kids that are like from the public, those people that are coming in, really take it as though they know nothing. So at least when we approach the lessons, right, they're not going to be wondering, oh, how come the teacher didn't explain this? We're going to go through everything with them, and in that sense, we create the awareness. Once they are aware of those things, there is this green box below that, where I've kind of specified the different skill sets that they are going to need for section A and section B. So first thing, question analysis. How to go about analyzing the question in the planned response. The abbreviated writing section, very important, because we all know 10 minutes, they need to plan and then they need to present. But what we as the teachers need to do is basically guide them step by step how exactly they can go about planning. What they should be writing down on that piece of paper, how they should be referring to it, rehearsing, and then eventually how they are going to deliver that. Section A, those things. Section B, on the other hand, question identification, how to go about utilizing evidence and the correct response, and then it comes back down to the spoken delivery and conversational skills. Okay, conversational skills seems a bit random here, but at the end of the day, we have to understand that section B is really a spoken interaction. Meaning to say that we have to engage the examiner. So there is going to be an anecdotal aspect to it. There is going to be an element where we have to deliver evidence. We have to ensure that the examiner wants to hear what we are saying. By we, I'm of course referring to the students. I don't know when I became a student in my example, but that's how we're going to do it. Okay, so communicate that to your students so that they can communicate that to the examiners. Okay, on the side here, I put down just my lesson order. So you guys, when you are looking at the prep, you can see how to go about doing it. So after going through these things and introducing awareness to them, I'm going to start with content as well. So for content, I have the topic info. This particular topic for this lesson is health and fitness. On the cover page, what I would do is of course clarify this can refer to both physical and mental health. But since there is a big element on fitness as well, the focus is going to be on the physical health aspect of that. I have just some prompts over there to open up their thinking, get them contemplating this particular topic. Why is health important? How can we create time to focus on our health? What are some activities we can do for exercise, leisure, so on and so forth. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go to this whole list of questions on page 6. We've already shared with them the content on the different types of questions and the different responses. So now, right, it's kind of putting that into practice. How we should go about responding or conducting this particular section is kind of throwing up the questions to the students in your class. Ask them question 1, what type of question, and what response we should use for that. So we do that for 1 to 9. You guys can see that it is a mix of all the different question types except for the descriptive. So I've added a couple of descriptive questions below. They are from last year's O-level. The descriptive questions, they are more specific to the video that will be played for the students. So for example, how do you think the people watching the dance performance are feeling? So in order to describe their feelings, we have to firstly go by their expressions and how they look. If they are crying and your student says they are feeling very happy, something's very wrong. So we're going to start describing, and then from there we're going to extrapolate and make it a little bit expository in the way we respond to it. Once they are more familiar with the questions, we focus on the 3 O-level questions, or the 3 questions that we will actually be responding to. Our job here is basically to analyze the question, break it down, let the students know how they should go about answering it. So there are 3 questions. What I would recommend is for the first 2 questions, you can demonstrate, or at least for the first one. And then after that, throw it back to the students, get them to see if they can do it themselves, and if they know how to go about answering it. These 3 questions, they are all under a specific topic, but we can also kind of point out the different ways this topic can be approached. First one is looking at exercise, second one is looking at leisure activity for children, and the last one is just talking about team sports and individual sports. So as you are doing this, right, try to really value add to your students by explaining to them a little bit on what are the specific contexts for each question. So I've put the context down there as well, that you guys can see as you are going through the prep. And once we are done doing that, we've kind of finished the questions for the moment. So we go on to something very important as well, which is the key vocab. This section, I would say it's important for a couple of reasons. And how we should go about communicating that to the kids, right? It's really letting them know all these terms here, not technically pieces of evidence. But if we incorporate these terms into our oral responses, the examiner is asking me about health and fitness in Singapore. I mentioned Active SG. I mentioned the National Step Challenge. I mentioned all these different things. It demonstrates a certain awareness, a certain understanding, and even complexity towards this topic. So I'm kind of letting the examiner know, okay, I know a lot about this topic, and I'm going to demonstrate that. Terms, I explain to the kids that we have to put them in. Just kind of in your planning, in your response themselves, just think about where you can incorporate these terms, make it relevant. Quotations, some students are still under the misconception that they are pieces of evidence. They are not. They are stylistic devices. So we use them as hooks, just like we would in an argumentative essay. So it comes at the very start or it comes at the very end. That's how we use them, and tell the kids it's important to memorize a few quotations specific to a few different topics. When you go in and you are planning it, just write it down, and then you can incorporate it. Alright, so break it down. If you kind of want to break the monotony of the lesson, you can get them to tell you who these people are under the quotations. They really will not know a lot of them. So you can just explain to them, Google it on the spot, kind of make it a little bit more engaging in that way. And then we go over to key info. This is where we start talking about evidence. It's just a page of information. Information is incredibly objective. It is just statistical. It has no real bearing. In terms of utilizing information, we have to let the kids know that this information is there to support our arguments. So if you are just memorizing information, but you do not know how to connect them to certain arguments, certain questions, then you're going to be very confused. Because you're just going to start spewing information that may or may not be relevant. So what I've done here, right, which is what you guys can do as well in the lesson, is kind of connect the different pieces of evidence to different questions. So if people in Singapore are finding it more difficult to find time to exercise, then if you disagree, there is a piece of evidence you can use to support that. Similarly, on the other end of things, if you agree with this question or with this prompt, or your stand is just that you agree, then there are also pieces of evidence you can use to support that. So it's about taking the evidence, utilizing it to answer different types of questions, utilizing the evidence to support various stands. This particular page is the one we want to tell the kids, go home, revise, read, memorize. These are just statistics. You need some statistics, you need some evidence, or your arguments are not going to be very strong. So we really have to be able to communicate it to them. And once we're done with that, there comes all these articles. Purpose of these articles: background info, increase content, increase awareness, increase understanding. And this is personally, right, just me, I would not go through the articles in the lesson themselves. The reason for that is that I think if we understand the purpose behind going through the articles to get content, there are a few different ways we can go about doing that. That would be a little bit better suited for a lesson. So I'm going to be using a couple of videos instead of going through the articles. But with that said, I do tell them to go home and read. It's kind of their homework in a way, just revising, getting a little bit more content on the matter. And then I will play the video in class. I've already uploaded the 2 videos to the lesson prep folder. When you are playing the videos, you can see, if I were to figure out how to do this. First video, it is on purposeful play. It's answering one of the questions. Second one is looking at individual versus team sports, also answering one of the questions directly. So the content is a lot more relevant as well. And then as you do that, it's just a matter of pausing the video at specific moments, explaining to them why this content is important. There are certain things that they can copy down, let them know that they should be copying down as well. Once we are done with all of that, we've technically finished the content section. They now know what the questions are going to be like, they know how to answer the questions, and they have the content to do so. The only thing left is the skill sets. Prepared speech. It's something that's going to be very new because it's the first year SEAB are rolling this out and they're trying it, right? So the students might not be as aware of how to exactly plan to answer the question. We've done the abbreviated writing exercises for the past few oral lessons, but just approach it as though it is the very first time. We really want to let them know that this is a super important thing that they have to take note of. I have color-coded it here to maybe make it a little bit more consumable or easier to understand. Red, yellow, and orange. Put all of that together and that is the entirety of the oral response. That is everything they should be saying. If they were to write it out like we do in our actual lessons, they will be writing all of those sections. But when it comes to the planning, they have 10 minutes, they should be writing in point form or any abbreviated way. I've highlighted that just in yellow. So just signpost, argument, and example. Signpost, argument, example, signpost, argument, example, signpost, hook at the end. Just the yellow sections, 10 minutes, they can write it down, they can plan it very clearly. Important to also let them know, no need to write in full sentences. As long as they can understand it, they can communicate it. So we can run through with them how it's supposed to look in shorthand or in any abbreviated sense, but it comes down at the end of the day to how they want to go about doing it for themselves. I mean, something you can do in class is after you get them to plan, you can just walk around, look at their papers, and then get them to explain to you on the spot. If they are confused by their own planning, tell them follow yours. If they know how to do it effectively, let them do it. Alright, as long as they can do it, that is what matters. For these particular questions, the way I'm going about it, first question, it's more of the teacher demonstrating. So we kind of really demonstrate to them exactly how it's supposed to be like. I recommend using the teacher's copy so that we can actually show them the difference between what the spoken response looks like versus your planned response. Just the planning section, it's the portions in red. There are the bullet points that are already included in the teacher section, so I've just added in the signposting part as well, which is the disagree and then the argument plus example part. So I've done this for all the different sections for question 1. In the lesson, you can go about adding in the things that I've added in with the double stars beside them. Once you are done with that, I think it would be really good if we can demonstrate how to deliver it while looking at it. But if anyone doesn't feel comfortable or they want to do that, then maybe you can nominate or elect one of your students to do it instead. So figure out what works best for you. If you're confident that you want to demonstrate an ideal or model version of responding, go ahead. Flex. If not, then get one of your students to do it as well. The students will be very happy. That's question 1. So after question 1, we've demonstrated already the skill set that is required. Then we move on to question 2. It is something that I think... Okay, so the way I approach this particular question, right? They are just meant to do the planning. And this is the question that they are going to go home, record themselves and submit to you. So generally for my students, I make it compulsory that they have to submit the video for every oral lessons. This round might be a bit different because we have the students that are from the public. So we kind of have to maneuver that depending on however it's like in your own classrooms. Right? If you want to add them to your Google Classroom, what I'm planning to do is just like put my Telegram name there. So even the members of the public, they can just Telegram me their videos. I'm assuming they're going to do that. I'm hoping they're going to do that. So that's one way to go about it. Give them 10 minutes, do the planning. I think earlier Jamis mentioned get a couple of students to present. If time permits, you can do that after they are done planning for question 2, because for question 3, what I'm getting them to do is write out the full written response. So instead of doing just the planning for this particular question, they write out the full response and then they submit it to you by the end of the lesson. So this full response, I've also added in some additional notes and how they can go about writing it in terms of the scarce structure. They are meant to write it, complete it, submit it to you, and you should be marking this. Do bear in mind that whatever we are marking on paper will be out of 10 marks, not out of 15, because 5 marks is for delivery and oral. Alright, so that's how you go about it. So just to recap really quick, it comes back down to awareness, content, and skills. The way I've tried to approach this first lesson is to demonstrate all of those things because we have 4 lessons in this workshop. So I figured the first lesson try to demonstrate everything, and then the subsequent 3 lessons, the other MLs will be sharing how we can go about ensuring that those skills, the content, and everything is really locked in. And I think that is pretty much it for me.